husband. Police were called because she attacked him and she wanted a divorce. The police had to inform Child Protective Services since there were kids present, mine included. Basically, her whole life has gone down the drain. 2 kids to different fathers, 2 divorces before she even turned 30, a lot of debt and expenses, and looks like our kid will be spending the majority of her time at my place, which is what our kid has wanted for the past 2-ish years. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called Nanny Nanny Boo Boo. It says, "Sounds like your divorce was a good thing for you. Maybe consider whether your child would be better off living with you and visiting the mother occasionally." OP responded to this one and said, "Yep, I've never been happier. I also have a new wifey, not married yet, and my kid loves her new stepmom. Also, I'm seriously considering pursuing for our kid to stay here most of the time, depending on the outcome of the CPS report." Another commenter down below called NickIs84 said, "Careful OP, your ex is going to want to reconcile just to avoid paying child support and or becoming homeless. Of course, you're going to say no, but she's not in a good place. Might want to install some cameras as a precaution, just in case." OP responded to this one and said, "Thanks, I have a few cameras recording outside our home 24/7, so all good on that front." Does anybody else here think that the new guy on her end was whispering in her ear, sue him, get all the money out of him you can"? Because they had a fairly normal agreement when they broke up, but then a little while afterwards, she started going a little bit nuts and trying to get everything she could out of him. It sounds like OP has a good case for 100% custody, and if that happens, the one giving the money will be her to him for child support. Karma's a B, isn't it? This story comes to us from Maleficent Froyo 7336. This is a cute one. A few years back, my brother had married a walking power trip of a woman who had him by the short hairs. Everything was her way or the highway, and she could hardly be reasoned with. As an example, she called me up one morning at 5 a.m. to tell me my brother had been cheating on her, and her proof was junk mails in his inbox. You know the ones, this one trick will grow your eggplant, all the women will love you more. Or, do you like Russian women? Click here for Svetlana, she's waiting to meet you. And when I sent her a screenshot of my own inbox to show that I had that junk mail too, she blocked me on all social media and my phone number. So that's the kind of person we're dealing with. Don't get me started on when she uninvited me to their wedding for reposting a Humane Society PSA on my Facebook. And this control extended to his 3 young children. So my 7-year-old nephew was at my mom's house and playing in her rock garden. He had happily filled 2 sandwich bags my mom had given him with his favorite river rocks from the garden and was just pleased as punch. Well, his new stepmom told him he could only have 1 bag of rocks and that he had to choose. Now, for a little context, my brother's kids are not perfect little angels who get anything their little hearts desire, but it's just a bag of rocks. It doesn't do any harm, and Mommy Dearest in training had been a total nightmare all day. So the bags of rocks, my nephew was 7 and this just breaks his heart. She holds firm and demands that he only take 1 bag of rocks. So my mom went to comfort my nephew and tells him she'll help him fit his favorites in 1 bag. She ushered him inside and produced a quart-sized bag, dumps both bags of rocks into one.
Yo, it's Austin Hero. We about to do a 24-hour challenge with Liquid IV. The day just getting started. We about to make some eggs, and then we got lifting after this. But yeah, stay tuned, and let's do it.
1 bag. They both go back outside with 1 bag, and Mommy Dearest was incensed. My mom just smiled her sweet grandma smile and said, "There, 1 bag of rocks." While my nephew delightfully remarked that he can fit even more now, since there is room in his new baggie. She didn't say a darn word. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called WordWizardX. It says, "Not to take away from the story, but as a parent to 2 kids who used to fill their pockets with junk all the time, I would have absolutely required my kid to pare their find down to 1 bag before going home. You'd be surprised how easily a child's room can fill up with utter trash, and how much of a tantrum they can throw if you get rid of any of it. Making them choose what to keep up front helps them learn how to make those decisions later. OP responded and said, "Oh, I have no doubt. The random stuff they'll keep is insane. I totally agree with you. It's all about balance." I completely agree with this comment in that you don't want your kids filling up their room completely with junk. But I've gotta side with Grandma in this case. I think she's dealing with a daughter-in-law that has been a pain in the butt in the past and really doesn't want their kids to have any joy. Grandma sees that and wants to make the kid happy while making a little bit of a jab towards her daughter-in-law. I say good for you, Grandma. This story comes to us from Word Wizard X. Fine, I'll type it. This is an old one from back when I was in 6th grade and school computers were still in labs. There was a guy in my class I'll call Jason who was that certain breed of show-off common to the early 90s. The one who totally knows Kung Fu but just can't show you right now, and who makes loud fart noises every time the teacher turns around, and is more concerned with belching the alphabet than with learning to spell. Unfortunately, one of my friends was dating Jason, as much as a 6th grader can, so he was always hanging around. We got to the dreaded 5-paragraph essay assignment, and Jason showed up with a crumpled notebook page. He was a terrible typist and always asked me, the nerd of our group, to type up his work for him. I, being 12 and wanting to keep my friend happy, usually did it. For whatever reason, this essay was my last straw, so I typed it exactly as written, except instead of fixing his spelling as I went, I tried interpreting his terrible handwriting literally, and as wrongly as possible whenever there was ambiguity. It was an unreadable mess. My friend was mad at me, but he never asked again. He also had been held back 2 grades by the time we turned 18, and is now a tractor salesman, so I guess he never needed that 5-paragraph essay anyway. OP, I don't think you understand how much a tractor salesman can make, especially if they're working on commissions. You know, tractors can go for like $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, and there's combines that can get up to close to $1 million. I'm guessing they're doing just fine for themselves, and you are poorly underestimating what that job entails. This story comes to us from Chaos of a Mad Hatter. Not so delicious, malicious compliance. Growing up, my sister and I were good students and got straight A's most quarters. As some parents like to do, ours rewarded us for it by taking us out to dinner each report card, and they alternated who would choose the location between the two of us. Now, when we went out to dinner, there were some rules that didn't make sense as kids. Like, if we ordered a cup of soup, we had to get a salad or sandwich, and if anyone, including our parents, got an appetizer, then we couldn't get dessert. There were a couple more nuanced things, but those were the big two. But they didn't apply if the meal came with any of those things. So every time it was my turn to pick, I would pick Golden Corral, and after quite a few times of suffering through the lackluster food, my mom finally demanded to know why I always wanted to go there. Because it's the only time I can get both a soup and a dessert when we eat. We were allowed to order dessert after that. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called Era Gathorak. It says, "Those seem like pretty sensible rules to me as an adult. Get some solid food alongside the liquid for the first, and don't overeat and spend too much money for the second. Assuming whoever got the appetizer was also intended to share it with others, which is generally how it was in my family. That's pretty much why me and my siblings almost always chose an all-you-can-eat buffet whenever we had a chance to go out to eat. It was cheap, fully filled us hungry kids, and had a good variety of options. The quality was generally crap, but hey, when you have a big family and not a ton of money, you don't have many options. We usually defaulted to a local Chinese buffet over Golden Corral though. The food was so much better." OP responded and said, "As an adult, I totally agree. As a kid, I was just more determined to figure out how to get the most bang for my buck and report card. I preferred the Chinese buffet, but my parents had very bland tastes, so that was off the table entirely. OP, your parents had more bland taste than an American Chinese buffet? My condolences to you, holy. OP did say in another comment that their mom fully admits that she didn't know how to cook until we grew up and left the house. I didn't know food could be better than McDonald's until I left the house either. Did you know that every KCC video is also produced in podcast form? You can search for Karma Comment Chameleon on every major podcasting platform. I thank you for watching and listening. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.
You know that feeling of having to rewash dishes that didn't get clean? I don't.
Platinum Plus is Cascade's best clean ever. With double the Dawn and double the scrubbers, it removes the toughest grease and residue for an irresistible clean and shine. Cascade Platinum Plus. Dare to dish differently.
Don't fear blowouts. New Pampers Swaddlers helps prevent blowouts.
Hello and welcome back to the KCC channel. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today I have 3 stories for you from the Malicious Compliance subreddit. Before we start, if you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button. It's completely free and you can always change your mind later. Alright, on to the stories. Let's jump right in. This story comes to us from Mama Nay 2020. You want me to do what I'm told because you are the boss? Okay. I'd been reminded of this incident recently when I happened to run into one of my former bosses. And this is a story of malicious compliance. Many times, I'd mentioned during other conversations with them that I'd previously come from the private sector and was not used to how things were run, even after several years in local government, and definitely that those ways would never, ever fly in private sector, especially when it came to money. I had been tasked with being the liaison for returning money and personal property to people that were either victims or the perpetrators. Laws don't allow us to know which category individuals fell under, but if a judge said, give their property back to them, that's what I did, with the correct paperwork, period. Of course, there were procedures, proper paperwork had to be filled out, and a valid and current state identification or driver's license, a court order, and an evidence voucher was needed. Everything had to match on all of the paperwork, their full name, address, city, and state, and a property receipt from the police department. If they came to me with a receipt that said John Q. Doe, then their identification had to say the same. Not Jack Doe, not JQ Doe, you get it. It was supposed to be a surefire way to make sure that the right person claimed the property. And 99.99% of the time, it was money, US dollars. And our department was entrusted to follow the rules. Well, the supervisor and the department head, let's call them TD and TL, were both in rare form this particular day during our routine morning meeting, when they both had attitudes about everything. It probably had something to do with the fact that they were being applauded for running a tight ship and getting things done. Yeah, right. All they had to do was sign their names to things. The staff did all of the hard work. And yet contradicting everything said between one and the other, and walking around with their chests out like they were God's gifts. And in not so many words, both professing, I'm the boss, I want it done this way or that way. If I say something, that's the way I want it. Do it and don't question me. Okay, I thought, and I've been asked before at other jobs, are you sure? Really sure? Because I was taught to do just that, give you exactly what you want. And usually people end up not liking it. They both were so nasty in their response that I just smiled at my friend and coworker across the table, who shook her head and did a facepalm. Why? Because she knows me. Okay, it's on. I'm going to do it your way, without question, because you two are the boss. At around 11 a.m., I get a call from the security desk that a visitor had arrived with a property receipt, etc., and wanted to know if I would come and collect them to get the process started. Sure, I'll be down in about 10 to 15 minutes, I told them, as I was in the process of counting money and needed to focus. As on any given day, There was around $100,000 in cash on my desk, and I didn't want to put the money back in the safe and start all over. When I finally finished counting the money and went downstairs to collect the visitor was clearly agitated. Was I bothered? Kind of, but I was secure enough knowing that there were 400 or so officers with pew-pews in the building. So I led the visitor up to my office, had them seated, took their information, and began the process. Except 1, the voucher looked old. 2, the name on the voucher didn't match the receipt. 3, the receipt nor the voucher matched the court order. And 4, their ID was expired. Alert! Alert! Giant red flags waving in the breeze. Everything that I'd been taught was screaming at me that this was bad and that it was going to end badly. I made the necessary copies for my records of all the information like always, except this time 2 of everything, and actually circled all of the discrepancies in red marker, and then told the visitor that I needed to get the checkbook from another office. It would take a little while to get the signatures needed, and release of funds requires 2 other signatures. I first went to my immediate supervisor, TL, and explained the situation to her. I showed her every single solitary piece of paperwork, pointed out all of which I'd circled, that the information didn't match on any of the forms in any way at all. She literally did a quick scan and said, "It's okay, do it." I know that I stood there with my mouth opening and closing, with no words coming out for a full 2 minutes, shaking my head and in shock, before I said, "Wait, did you really look at what I'm showing you? There's something wrong with all of it. I think it's forgery and fraud about to be committed." Her words were, "I said do it," while pushing all of the paperwork across her desk back to me. "Are you sure? Do you want to look at it again? Do you realize that I'm supposed to cut a check for $97,000? I asked. "No, it's fine, do it, so that you can get back to your other work." I then told her that I was really uncomfortable completing the transaction and that I wanted to speak to TD about it. And so I walked across the hall, tapped on TD's door, and asked if we could discuss the transaction.
Bounty Mega Roll, 4 rolls in 1.
Ugh, nope. Try my Old Spice. You can use it on your pits, chest, and even your...
Now mind you, TD is the department head, one of the signatures needed to finalize the paperwork. The other person to sign would be the accounts payable department head. I spread both sets of copies of the papers across his desk, and again explained in detail the situation and what was wrong with all of it. At least he took a few more minutes to pore over the paperwork, unlike TL, and so I thought, okay, he's paying attention. He'll see everything that's wrong with this. He'll make a call downstairs and have a couple of officers up here in no time. Nope, he literally said, "It's all good, do it." TD, it's not all good. Please look at it all again, I pleaded. Now is a good time to tell everyone that I worked for lawyers for 5 years straight out of high school, and one of the best things that I've ever learned was what definitely became my lifelong motto: cover your own butt and don't take the fall for other people. And that mindset has been good to me. Again, I pleaded with TD to look closely at the paperwork. I pointed out all of the discrepancies again. The wrong name, the paper being the wrong color and looking old, the expired state ID, everything. And again, he said, "I said do it." Okay, I thought, this is one of the times when you know for certain that this is going to come back and bite you in the butt. But remember when I said that I worked for lawyers for 5 years in my earlier career? Well, I remembered them always saying, signatures are everything. Now, normally, the only time I would need signatures are when the checks are actually cut. But this time, I was definitely going to take it oh so much further. Back out to the copier I went for one more copy of all the paperwork. First stop was the supervisor, TL. TL, I need your signature to finish this transaction. Sign and date here, 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 and here. Yes, everywhere I'd made a notation in red marker. Thank you. And off I went back to TD to get his signature. Sorry to bother you, TD, but I need your signature and date here, 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 and here. All the while thinking, You two won't be having me accused and arrested for conspiring with a total stranger. With that done, I asked TD one more time, are you sure that you want me to complete this transaction after everything that I've pointed out, cut a check and send the visitor on his way? TD never looked up from what he was reading and said yes. So that's what I did. Completed the steps necessary to cut the $90,000 check and send the visitor on his merry way. 3 weeks later, all hell broke loose. OP, my office now! My head has never whipped back and forth so fast in my entire life as they both talked at the same time. TD beat red and TL wringing her hands in frustration. Shut the door, TL said, and then I could barely understand what was being said, but eventually figured out that it was about the transaction and check that I'd written prior. Yep, we, and I say we very loosely, handed over close to $100,000 to the wrong person. They handed me a record of everything that was currently happening because of that transaction. The commissioner's memo, the judge's orders, the investigation procedures, the assigned case number and detectives, the names of the bank representatives. I was told that there was an ongoing investigation and I'd be contacted by the bank and detectives shortly. And lastly, that I might be fired. What do you have to say for yourself? TD asked forcefully while slapping the top of his desk. To which I replied, I did what I was supposed to do. I did what I was told to do. Don't you remember signing off on it all? I said matter-of-factly. They both spluttered something to the effect of, I would never. I have an MBA, and I've been doing this for 30 years. No, this is your mistake. This is not going to end well for you, etc. I almost burst out laughing, because it very much sounded like the teacher from the Charlie Brown cartoons. You know, wah, 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 wah. But I was in no way worried. I calmly got up out of the chair that I'd been perched on the edge of, excused myself, walked to my office, picked up my purse and got my desk key out, opened the drawer, and pulled out the folder that I had made of that one particular transaction. I had purposely kept it separate from the other copies, just in case those papers somehow magically disappeared. Since TL was commonly and routinely famous for going through our desks, I walked back to TD's office and sat the folder on his desk in front of him and waited. What's this? TD asked me. Just open it, I said. He spent more time going through those papers than he had when he should have been paying a heck of a lot more attention 3 weeks ago. He finally looked across his desk at me with wide eyes, and I just blinked back at him, not saying a word. TL asked, well, what is it? And so he hands her the file, but never takes his eyes off of me. I swear, in that moment, I could hear her gulp loudly. For me, it was an, oh, so you think that I'm going to take the fall for this one moment? No, nope, not today, not tomorrow, not next month, not ever. And then I waited some more. You could definitely hear a feather drop. The room had gotten so quiet. As I said, I did what I was supposed to do, just like you two told me. Anything else you need me to clear up? I asked. TD and TL couldn't speak. Neither could find their voices in the moment, so I just quietly left the office, shut the door behind me, and smiled all the way back to my office.
Febreze. Your bathroom needs Febreze small spaces. The always-on odor-fighting air freshener you set and forget. No outlets used, no batteries needed, no effort required. So your bathroom stays continuously fresh for 45 days. That's the power of Febreze small spaces.
What happened with the ongoing investigation, I'll never know. The subject was never brought up again. Heck, I did just what they both told me to do. They're the bosses, right? Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called Flyrun. It says, so what happened to that folder you presented? TD and TL could have easily taken it from you right then. Or did you keep a copy to cover your butt and hand it over to the bank and or detectives? With such a big investigation, I'm surprised that they weren't fired or charged. I'm not sure that OP handled this one the same way that I would have. I think I would have held on to that paperwork, kept a copy at home, away from where the ones that could disappear were, and I would have waited for that investigation to start and then produce the evidence right then and there to the detectives and the investigators that were going over everything. Why give all the evidence to the bosses before the investigations even started? That just means they can make it disappear and make themselves look better. And unfortunately, it sounds like that's what happened in this case, because OP says that they never heard anything about it ever again. I just feel like a big opportunity was wasted here, where the investigation could have just brought this down completely on both of the bosses in this case. This story comes to us from First Desponder. Was denied 2 days of paid PTO, so I took off a whole month. When I worked corrections, I requested for 2 weeks off. I had been there for years and accrued plenty of paid leave. It was given to me as I had done so months in advance for a personal event. The 2 weeks went by way too quick. I had specifically lined up my 2-week break to lead into my 2 days off at the beginning of the break and at the end, so I could maximize my time off. However, during my normal off days, a family emergency came up that was quite serious, so I asked for another 2 days off to handle my situation. I was told by my direct supervisor that there was no way she was approving that, because we were only allowed to use 84 hours of leave in one continuous block. Given our rotating written schedules and 12-hour shifts, this equaled 2 weeks. She ordered me to come in the next day or I would receive a write-up. I didn't argue